All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, the first WNBA offseason video, and we're going to talk some women's college hoops at the end. We're going to talk about the CBA for the WNBA, the collective bargaining agreement. We're going to talk about some rule changes in college basketball. So if you like what I have to say, like the video. If you have any opinions, comment down below, and if you just like the vibes, consider subscribing. So first thing I want to hit. Well, first thing I want to say, this is pre-recorded, so this is going up this weekend. I'm recording this on Friday, so if anything changes, hopefully nothing will. I waited specifically this long just so we would have everything, all the news and everything about the collective bargaining agreement for the WNBA. And this was reported by Alexis Philippe. I don't even know how to say that name. I'll leave a link down below so you guys can check out her article. It's a little small article. I'm probably gonna get through most of it here, but this happened on the 28th of October. This was reported at 7 p.m. So the report is that the WNBA has offered players a 30-day extension to a 30-day extension to continue negotiations for the new collective bargaining agreement. Sources told ESPN on Tuesday the extension before the current CBA expires Friday would allow both sides to work would allow both sides more time to work towards a new deal, even though if one is not implemented, both parties could continue to negotiate in good faith. Um, both sides agreed to a 60-day extension during the last round of the collective bargaining agreement negotiations in 2019 before the new deal was signed in January of 2020. So this is not the first time it's been extended. I believe it's also been extended in the NBA. There has also been a NBA lockout. Many. It's almost that's damn near over a decade ago. There was a lockout in the NBA. But a source said players might be willing to consider an extension under the right circumstances, but if they feel those circumstances do not exist yet. But they did agree to this extension of 30 days, or was it 60 days? 60 day extension, yeah. So that is the WNBA news. And I want to get my thoughts on this because there's a lot of moving parts, and we didn't really talk about the collective bargaining agreement that much um, when the playoffs and the finals started, because I really wanted to focus on that, and I didn't think it was appropriate to really talk about that sort of stuff um, during a celebratory time. As somebody whose team won the finals, it was a good time for me. It was a fun time for me. But I thought it would just whoever had won, I would have just let it be and not move the topic too much and just keep it on the finals. But now that we're in the off season, now we're in the dead of the fall, heading into the winter. These talks are uh, as reported, at a standstill right now, and there isn't really any movement on a new deal. That's why the extension needed to be proposed and implemented this time around. So, what do I think about the CBA and where it's gone? And I've changed my opinion a little bit, just a little bit. I don't think a lockout benefits anybody. I think it does. Here's the thing. I don't think it does. It doesn't do a disservice to the players. I think the players are fine with a lockout. I think they're perfectly fine with having their lockout and protesting whatever they want, whatever they need, whatever they want to have in this next collective bargaining agreement. And I think a lot of their requests and a lot of their wants are very reasonable. Actually, I think when you look at the grand scheme of things of the WNBA, and this has been talked about by Fisa Collier and other people involved in the Women's Basketball Players Association, um, where they just want a fair piece of everything. And when I say everything, I mean like everything, like essentially what the men have, essentially what the NBA has. And what I failed to understand is any of the budging on this stuff because I'm not privy to these conversations, and nobody is really privy to these conversations except the people that are actually in the know. Um, at these meetings or on these Zoom calls, whatever how they do it. Um, I think the unwillingness to bargain is worrisome for me. I think this extension of the the talks, the 60 days, is a positive step because it means they're getting somewhere, even if it's not being reported like that. I don't think the WNBA's players would want the extension if they're just universes away from it. They might be planets away from it, but they're not universes away from it. You know what I mean? Like, um, as like a metaphor. I don't think they're as far away as it is being reported. Because if they were that far away, the players would just be like, yeah, no, we're just gonna do a lockout now, and do a complete work stoppage. I think there's a lot of room. I think the players think there's a lot more room to give the players what they want. And I think the biggest thing that it does, if the players do strike, if there is a lockout, it benefits the players, right? Because the players that are already in the league, right? That's what I'm saying. The players that are already in the league, it benefits them because they're finally going to get what they want. Hopefully, if there's a lockout. I've theorized there's always going to be a lockout, no matter what. I don't think there's a world in which there isn't at least like a small lockout, like a month long lockout before they get it all situated, right? I think that it doesn't benefit the expansion teams that are coming in over the next 5 years. It doesn't benefit the college players coming in, and it doesn't benefit the teams at all. And teams, you can say, well, the teams are owned by these mega rich owners or rich owners, and they don't care about the players. They should care about the players. They wouldn't have teams if there weren't any players. Blah 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 blah. This and the third, and I think that's correct, but it doesn't help anybody. And the thing that always bothered me is like these players always want more time in between games. They want more recovery time in between games. But if there's a lockout and the season has to start on time, like that's a stipulation of getting rid of the lockout on the league side of things, they're going to be playing more back to backs than ever, you know. Or if the season starts late, even in that case, there's going to be more back to backs than ever. So I don't think it benefits anybody. I don't think the players. Again, I'm not in these conversations. I don't know these things, but I think that's something that's overlooked. That like when the NBA had their lockout, it was one of the worst years of basketball because all these players are playing back to backs, and some of these players came in the camp out of shape. Some of these players came in shape. There were some weird things that happened that season, and it didn't benefit anybody that there was a lockout, except that they got the deal done for the next couple years. But that season in particular is one of the worst because it was just so strenuous on the players' bodies, and these WNBA players are fighting for protection of themselves. Whether it be in the game with the refereeing, the sort of physical play that some players get away with and the refs aren't calling it, and like all this stuff, and the injuries mounting up and everything over the course of like teams playing back to back to back to backs, or a team playing like once and then missing a week and then playing again. you know um, I don't think it benefits anybody for there to be a lockout. And I'm going to read something here that from NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. He said this in an interview, I believe, um, that he expects, and I'm paraphrasing here, he expects raises for WNBA players in the new CBA. And he says, and I quote, they deserve it. And I agree with that. I, I think the product is really good. I think there's some things that um, I would be more. This sounds so like naive of me, but personally, I don't really care about the money. And I know that's like a hot thing to say. Like if I was a player, I wouldn't care about the money. There's so many opportunities, especially if you market yourself right, that you could have, um, seen by like a bunch of other WNBA players. You have opportunities off the court, and this is sort of like your side gig, playing in a national basketball league, association. Um, I'd be more concerned about like the little things, you know. Um, Everything that I said just moments ago, the protection of their bodies in the sense of in playing the game, and the physicality of the game needs to be reeled back in a little bit. The games, the um, what do you call it? The I guess the healthcare, quote unquote. The healthcare of it all. The facilities need to a lot of the WNBA facilities are getting revamped and getting new buildings, but I think all of them deserve some real like actual new buildings. There's some amazing stuff that I've seen over the last couple of years where these facilities are like in partner with another league's team. Like the Utah Jazz of the NBA and the expansion team in the NHL of the Utah hockey team. I believe they're the Mammoths. Are sharing a building, but it's a huge campus almost, and that's a really cool idea for them, like to share the same property but have different buildings, but have it owned by two people essentially, but built together. So it's a big thing, and there's all these amenities and all these things that could happen. And I think WNBA deserves that as well. Not just to have to share a building or having your own building is cool, but like not just to share a building, but have like a huge thing where it encompasses a couple other sports, maybe. I think that's a cool thing. That's on the owner side of things. That's the owners wanting to spend. Um, but I think there are a lot. I think there are a lot more imperative things before the money. And I know the money is the big sticking point. The money is all anybody's ever talked about this whole past year and a half, when we knew this was coming, when we knew the CBA was up, when we knew there might be a lockout, there still might be a lockout. And I think there are a lot more important things that I would go down the list first of to say, hey, you talk to the people in the league off and say, hey, we need this stuff. And if that requires taking a little bit of a pay cut, from what I think what was theorized was I have to find the article, but it was a bump in a pay that was pretty pretty large. That was like the first. That was reported. That was like the first round of like negotiations that, well, not the first one. One of the first rounds of negotiations that the WNBA put forward to the players was like, we're gonna bump your pay this much, but we really don't want to do any more. And I guess that's why there's a extension going on now. But I think there's a lot of positive things happening that we aren't privy to, and there's also there's a lot of I'm very skeptical of players negotiating, and I've made that very clear on this channel because in the NBA, the last regime of the Players Association that negotiated the NBA's collective bargaining agreement was that like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that. Uh, just screwed it up. They screwed it up so bad. They screwed up the league so bad. It's so bad. Especially when you look at the number size, the cap situation, um, all these things. And that's completely different than the WNBA. The WNBA, it sounds so simplistic, but they just want the bare minimum almost. They want like these basic needs that they haven't had for, was it like 25, 20 something years of their league, that they just want the basics of. And I think they've earned it, but I think there has to be some middle ground, Matt. And I think the players holding still and holding pat on a lot of these things is going to be why there's a lockout. And I'm not trying to blame the players. I'm not trying to be like the players don't deserve it. They obviously deserve it. But there's a little part of me that's like, oh God, don't let this be like the NBA where it's just messed up because you just wanted to mess it up, and all these trickle down effects that happen that might not affect you, these older players, and like that are gonna like be retired in like 5 years or whatever the case may be. It's gonna affect the next generation, and the next generation might benefit from a lot of the things that happen in these negotiations, but also might hurt the teams. It might hurt the opportunities, of these teams, and I don't know. I just worry about it. I see it from both sides for sure. I think there's a lot of. Oh, okay. Here's the salaries, I believe. Yes. Okay. So here I found the salary. So, tier one, the supermax, $800,000 to $1 million, for like supermax. That's the high. That's usually the highest paid player, or like the highest two played, or sometimes if you can get under that special number that they would set, three players that would get like the supermax between 800,000 and $1,001. I don't know why there's a one. Just make it $1 million or 1,000,002. Tier two would be like your role players, your really off the bench guys or women. That'd be 500,000 to 750,000. That's pretty substantial. And then there would be tier three, which would be like the vet minimum. Usually you have like one or two vets on a team, um, that are like in the twilight of their career, but they're on the team because they still specialize in a certain thing. Think like Dewana Bonner of this last finals for the Mercury. Think Brittany Griner, of the Atlanta Dream in the playoffs. Think um, what's her name? Howard on the Indiana Fever. This is sort of that vet minimum 300 or 50, $450,000 um, salary, right? And these salaries are usually over like depending on the length of them, depending on the amount, there would be a length attached to it. So like, let's go back to tier one, right? The supermax, 800,000 to $1 million. Um, you could probably only get to $1 million if it's a 4 year deal. You know, if it's a 3 year deal, then it's 900,000. If it's an 8 year deal, or if the GM is creative enough, they can do some creative accounting and um, front load it, back load it. You know, whatever the case may be in certain situations, case by case dependent. And then the last one here, um, let's see here, hardship exceptions, 175 million. So that's like injury replacements essentially that you would sign for like 30 days or something like that, or 30 days, and then you would guarantee the contract, which would be that much money for the rest of the year. And then the rookie deals would be $100,000 to $150,000, which we're not comparing to the NBA, but in comparison to what rookies get now, I think that's pretty good. I think that's I think that's pretty good. And what I'm reading here is that um, do 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 do. Let's see. I'm trying to. I saw the. Uh, oh, raise the floor for the vets, right? Um, it would raise the floor for the vets. It would give stars $1 million headliner contract, and it would the cap would be around 4 million to 5 million, give or take, around that ballpark, somewhere in that range. So for a whole team salary, that's a whole team, you know. So you do some creative accounting in between there, you know. The rosters are pretty small now too. I think that's another thing that the WNBA players need to push for is bigger rosters. I think there's a lot of times where you get in these situations in the playoffs, especially where you just can't rely on people you thought you could rely on. You got to bring somebody off the bench, and the Fever were a great example of this, and they made it to the almost to the big dance, and they had a lot of players who probably would have been on these hardship contracts, these vet minimum contracts, you know, where you're like, okay, now that I've played my contract out this next year, I'm gonna go into the next year. Might not be on the Fever, but I'm gonna get paid because I showed out, you know. Um, I think this is reasonable. And now somebody made a good point on this post that said we don't without the league's where is it, without the league's revenue that they share, and the players could assess, um, there's no like concrete way to do this, you know. There's no concrete telltale if this is a good deal from the player's side. So there's that. Um, And I think that's it. That's all I really wanted to say about the WNBA part of this video. I do want to hint at Unrivaled that's coming up. Um, that plays a big part in this is that like the Unrivaled League is a big part of these negotiations as well, and that like the WNBA doesn't want players playing in Unrivaled. And there was a point that I made that like there's no point of Unrivaled if players are getting paid what they want to get paid, you know. And Unrivaled would become a net like neutral. Like it would be fun for like young players to do it. You know, like college players going from college, they would play Unrivaled, which is 3-on-3 league, and then they would play in the WNBA. You know, in between the college season, there'd be Unrivaled, and then there'd be the WNBA draft. You know, that would be the only way it would really work. I think Unrivaled is a bit dubious in their how would you say this? They're a bit dubious in their why they still operate because they why they still operate is because um is for the players to get paid more. But if they get paid more in the W and the stipulation to the contract is the new WNBA contracts, you know, that you can't play in Unrivaled, you can't play in any other league that we don't sanction, you know, which is what the NBA does, and the NBA is way different. But I think it's reasonable because you're playing on Unrivaled, there's more miles on your body, it's more miles on your body. You dribble a basketball, you go up, you lay up, you shoot threes. It's miles on your legs. No matter how you look at it, no matter how you slice it or dice it, it's miles. And that's not good. That's not good for the product I'm trying to protect. As a WNBA like owner or whatever, or governor, I don't want you playing in these in pardon me, the stupid league where like you're not making me money. That's how you could see it from the owner's perspective. But the other perspective is like the players just want to play basketball, and I can commend that. I don't like people who don't love the game. If you love the game and you're willing to go out there and play in another league essentially for like was it like 2 months, two months and a half, with your friends down in Florida, they are going up to Philly this year to play some games. So we'll see. But I I, I think all these there's a huge thing going on. It's in the NBA too, where like there are all these alternative leagues, and we saw it with golf, with Live Golf going at the PGA. Live Golf was the Saudi funded, league, and they paid players like millions and millions of dollars. And the thing that has also come up in the WNBA and women's basketball is that there's going to be another women's league that's popping up. It might not be this season, but next season, where I assume they're going to try to pay players as well and pay them a lot of money. And there's this whole other thing where like there's this group that's trying to make like this F1 sort of style, like going country to country, playing 3-on-3 basketball, or even 5-on-5, I think. And they're going to pay players a lot of money to not play in any other leagues except this league and travel the world and play basketball, you know? And there are a bunch of things. And I think they're all pretty dubious. I think they're all um, dubious because there is no foundation for what they're doing, and there's no foundation for any other league besides the ones that are in America. And I'm not trying to sound like it's got to be in America because basketball is made by a Canadian, so it's not technically an American sport. It's a very Americanized sport. It's a global sport now as well with all the international players in the NBA and in the WNBA. But I feel the NBA is still where the best players play. I don't care if you like what Adam Silver is doing. I don't. I do care about the gambling thing that's going on in the NBA, but I think the WNBA is the best league. I think the NBA is the best league. I think it's the best league because it has history. Even if the WNBA's history is short and the NBA is what 76, 77 years old now, um, I think it's the best league, and it's because of the history. It's because of the types of players that have played here, and it's because the security of it. And this brings me back to the CBA. Is like WNBA players just want security. I think they'll budge on a lot of these things that they're willing to budge on. Like, hey, guess what? No Unrival. If you're gonna play on Unrival, you're gonna have to sign a certain type of contract. You can't be a max player if you play on Unrival. I think that would be a fair stipulation as well. It's like, hey, you want to play Unrival? You're not a max player. You're gonna make your additional money playing on Unrivaled. You don't get to hit our cap, hit our pockets, and then go play an Unrivaled, putting more miles on your body. I think that's a fair thing to do as well, because hey, we're gonna give you what we can give you, and then hey, you're gonna make the extra 200, 300, $400,000 that you're making, or even $1 million that some players are making in Unrivaled that you would make here. So you can do both, but these are the stipulations to the game. Um, so yeah, I do want to talk about some college stuff here. I want to see if I can find it real quick. I might have to go looking for it, but there was some changes in women's college hoops that I do want to talk about, or just college hoops in general. If I can find the article very quickly. Yes, I was correct. It's only for women's college hoops. So this is being reported. I'm getting this from the Daily W Sports Instagram page. It says new rules for the women's college hoops. Quick guide to the NCAA's 2025-2026 rule changes. And I've read some of these, but I haven't read all of them. So these are all approved and will take in effect this season. Starting this season, the shot clock will be set to 20 seconds when play resumes with front court throw ins after dead ball, a change aimed at increasing possessions because teams do not need time to advance the ball from the backcourt. This is a little bit different. They did this in the NBA where, like, if a shot comes off the rim, it's a different, it sets to a 15-second shot clock instead of a 20, I believe a 25-second shot clock, or no, it's a 14-second shot clock instead of a 24-second shot clock if it comes off the rim. So I was skeptical of this in the NBA, this sort of shot clock changing. but it worked out, and the pace is better. So I think it's good for women's hoops in college. Um, um, let's see here. Bench personnel who physically assist players with the ball, for example, bracing or pushing them to keep them in bounds, will now be penalized, closing a loophole on out of bounds interference. Bench personnel physically assisting a player with the ball. So you're saying like if the ball hits me, if the ball if the ball if the ball goes out of bounds towards the bench and it's on the team who's gonna push the ball on the other end's bench, I can't inbound it. I have to let the ref touch it. So I can't pick it up, hand it to my guy, or throw it to my guy. I have to throw it to the ref. Oh, sure, okay, whatever you say. Um, oh, so they're adding coaches challenges. They're calling it coaches appeals. Apparently, call it coaches challenges. That's what it is. Um, Coaches can appeal for specific rulings out of bounds, by out of bounds play. So if their player or the other player touched it, backcourt violations, whether team control changed before a foul, if it would affect free throws, and number four, whether the wrong player was charged. Okay, cool. I like that. Um, Contact traveling suspensions, a jump stop and step back is now legal with both feet land approximately at the same time. It's no longer has to be perfectly simultaneous. Okay, I like that. Defenders may be able. Well, this is the next one. Defenders may make more than one brief stove touch, hot stove touch on a dribbler, as long as it doesn't impede rhythm, speed, balance, quickness, or route, incidental, multiple touches that don't hinder the player. Okay, I don't know how they're gonna force that one. That one's crazy. Um, these are all technicals, administrative technicals for too many players on the court, except as timeouts to move the team technical foul category to reflect the team responsibility. Okay, I like that. If player fails to serve, required suspension for fighting or physical abuse, or physical abuse of an official. So just bumping into officials is what they're saying. I've never seen anybody actually like swing at a ref. That's crazy. That individual and headed coach are each suspended 1 game. Oh wow, okay. That's like off the court though. That's like the athletic director and everything, and the coach and all that. Uniforms and equipment. Jerseys no longer must be tucked into shorts, addressing modern jersey length and constant retucking. Okay, cool, whatever. I don't think it's a problem in the NBA, but the NBA enforces that, and I think the WNBA enforces that too. So, below the waist items, um, compression pants, knee/leg sleeves must be the same legal color for easier and less intrusive enforcement. Headbands may be up to 4 inches wide, previously capped at two, continuing gradual relaxation of uniform rules. Okay, cool. I like most of that stuff. The one with like the touching, like I can touch the ball handler like once, like just a little quick tap, and then like not impede like their thing. That's gonna be very hard. That's gonna be very hard to referee because a lot of these referees don't know how to referee that at the professional level, let alone the college level. So we'll see. But yeah, that's my WNBA offseason video. We'll see what happens over the course of the next 30 days with the CBA and all that stuff. So stay tuned for that. A lot more NBA stuff coming this next week. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out my WNBA playlist. I'll put it in the top right corner. If you click the little thing top right corner right now. It's happening right now. Click it. It'll take you to a playlist. You can watch the rest of my stuff. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. Cheers. Bye.